So,
Yeah, here we go.
we're almost at 7:30, so whatever you
Just look up the case.
feel
Okay.
good to go. We don't have our applicants here.
Good. Where are you? Well, they're upstairs.
Okay.
Well, then we can just afford to have
Um,
it.
But if anybody wanted to start with,
I got my ice pack, figure I'm all good to go.
that works for us.
I'm glad you came. I mean, really, I know it's, you
But
know,
it isn't that
it's
big
above
of a
and
position,
beyond.
but if it went to 11:30, I was gonna, that would be weakening and just be dislocating my neck.
No,
But I thought
we
you might
have
do
to
a nice job of
we have to
kind of.
finish no later than 10 o'clock,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
hopefully sooner.
And I think we,
Yeah,
I think we can do
We
that.
have a stand a chance.
No, it's because I didn't turn on the lights.
Oh, I did.
That's why.
It's nice.
Maybe it was
I didn't put much makeup on, you know, so it's cool. I don't mind being when they're gonna, not the blind lights.
Yeah, well,
I asked him, like,
couldn't help it. Tony got called away, so.
Things happen.
Yes, that is correct.
I will give you all the info to get yourself familiar with what's going on.
If you're a real speed reader.
Yeah.
Might as well go through it while everyone else is upstairs.
Are we waiting for something?
We are waiting for 98 Love Lane to come down.
They
if-
first, okay.
Yeah, they're first.
Okay, well, it's 7:30, so.
So we can start with the decision too.
Well, we'll start with public comment.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, do you have anything to say? Diana, do you have anything to say? No. In that case, we'll move on to, while we're waiting for them upstairs, let's move on to other business, if we have any non-hearing things to discuss tonight.
So on non-hearing things, we don't have minutes yet. The only thing I would talk about on the town planner report is our upcoming meeting schedule, which we have site visit on this coming Tuesday on the 9th for 687 Wellesley, that's a tree removal. Next meeting is the 17th, and then our November meetings just are the first and second week of the month because of Thanksgiving and town meeting.
Right.
That's really all. I usually have my updates from other committees, and if the rail trail has anything to tell us, there's Paul.
No,
No.
we have started on the rail trail. No, you don't want to do that, that would be,
Other than that, I can tell you that I did get draft minutes. I have to go through them. I just got them today, so I haven't had a chance to go through them myself.
okay.
And as for hiring the assistant planner, we've gone through our first screening interviews. We have a short list of 3 candidates. We're scheduling interviews for next week.
Next week.
Do they have experience in historical preservation?
One of them does.
One does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't know which of the days are gonna be, though. We don't know if it's Tuesday or Wednesday or.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
okay, but
have.
those, it's gonna be next week.
It's going to be next week. Yeah.
Okay.
So what are we reading? We're reading Captain's summation?
Yeah, if you want to read,
first?
if we want to go through 75 Scotch Pine, we can,
Well,
or do we want to
I don't know.
wait for 98 Love Lane?
No, he'll be fine.
Okay, very good. So just, we can put that aside for now.
I'm sorry, we were told no one was down here. I saw you two come down. I didn't see Susan.
I snuck
okay.
in.
She beat
Snuck in early.
You beat them.
Okay.
Come on, guys. Hey, Rob. My fault, I know. Sorry.
Let me start with a little preamble in this, because this is a little unusual. This is a special permit hearing in which we need 4 members to reach a decision to discuss the conditions in which, and whether we would approve approve the special permit. Due to circumstances that nobody could help, we only have 3 members tonight. So I'm opening the hearing. However, the 2 members who are not here will view the video under the Mullen rule. What we will have to do, though, is to continue the hearing to allow time for them to join the discussion and help us reach a decision, after which we would then review the decision. So we need we'll need to continue the hearing for 1 more meeting. We have invited Katie Loffman from Koppelman and Page to join us, to help us with a couple of issues that were raised in the first meeting. And those issues are, as I understand them, first of all, that if the density determination standards are met in a flexible permit application, that the board can't deny the special permit, that it must grant the special permit without conditions as of right. Because the density determination plan establishes compliance with the requirements of the flexible subdivision. That's the first issue that I at least heard in the first session of the hearing. The second issue is one of precedent, whether a waiver must be granted based on prior decisions. In this case, the density determination plan is contingent on the board's granting a waiver for a dead-end road. And the suggestion that I heard is that the board's past decisions mandate that the board must grant that waiver. So those are the 2 issues that I heard that we're asking Katie's opinion about this evening. Jonathan, is that a reasonable recapitulation of those 2 issues?
Well, the second issue, definitely, I'm not certain I fully understand the first issue, but yeah, Imai nicely told me that you were down to 3, and so, we did not, tonight, we did not bring our, architect, we did not bring our engineer, so with the board, we thought tonight would be a good night for discussion, recognizing that there's only 3 of you here. But if you could go over number 1 more time, Al, I apologize.
What I heard is that if the density determination plan conforms to the requirements of the flexible subdivision sections of the zoning bylaw, that the flexible plan must be accepted by the planning board without conditions. In order, the special permit must be issued.
I've never understood that.
Okay,
I'm arguing
I may
against my
have
client.
misunderstood that, because I heard that not just from you, but also from somebody else in the audience.
No, I don't, no, the density determination just is the number of lots. But then it's always been my understanding, and I think that's the case, that then it's a give and take whether you'll even accept the flexible.
All right, so
That's what was,
that's
excuse
interesting.
me, no, I don't, if I said that, that's not what was intended. No, I don't think you have to accept any flexible we throw at you just because it happens to have 2 lots.
All right.
So we don't have to take the time on that.
The board's position is that it can grant whatever reasonable conditions on the flexible plan that it sees fit.
I agree.
As a prerequisite for granting a flexible subdivision special permit.
I agree. I think how it's intended is to show you what we can do on a density. Yes, it requires 1 waiver, and if you don't like what we propose on the flexible, or what we arrive at on the flexible, the proponent has the right to proceed on a regular subdivision with the subdivision road, which I don't think any of us want. They love their house, so he doesn't want it, because it means taking down the house, but that's how I understand it.
But in this case, that's contingent on the board's granting a waiver on the dead-end road.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So let's talk about that issue. Katie, we've gotten a written opinion from Katie on this issue, but perhaps you could just spend a minute or two outlining your take on that issue.
Yeah. So as I understand the issue, as it was presented to me, is the question is if there is a past practice of the planning board or an established practice of granting dead-end waivers for other properties, is the board restricted in its decision with respect to this property when a dead-end waiver has been requested? And the opinion that I gave to the board is that every application comes before the board on its own merits and on a case-by-case analysis. If the board has the ability to grant waivers when they are consistent with the purpose of the subdivision control law, and the denial of a waiver can be appealed, but the standard of review for a denial of a waiver is whether or not the board act arbitrarily and capriciously. So that review standard, as with many cases that in the land use context that have that standard, there's a degree of deference that goes to the board, and the standard for arbitrary and capricious really looks at the question of whether or not the denial was consistent with the intent of the subdivision control law. So any denial would have to be linked to provisions in the subdivision control law, but it's a very high standard of appeal with respect to whether or not that arbitrary and capricious standard is met, and the deference is certainly given to the board and the board's view of local conditions and circumstances in its determination of whether or not to grant a waiver or deny a waiver.
Yeah. So,
I agree with pretty much everything Katie says, although I would suggest that a significant factor on whether something is arbitrary and capricious is to see how many times they've denied it in the past, see how many times they've allowed it, and see what the reasons would be for denying it this time.
I think that's consistent with the opinion I gave. It's a case-by-case analysis. You look at the specific circumstances, and certainly the denial has to be linked to a basis that is connected to the rules and regulations and the purpose and intent of the subdivision control law. I mean, that's really what defines whether or not something is arbitrary, not linked reasonably to the conditions or the circumstances or the intent and purpose of the law, which it is designed to.
right, and for that decision, we obviously need to have the whole board chime in. It's a fairly significant
Yeah,
decision.
you can't make that decision tonight, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping we don't even have to get there. And we can come up with a flexible that we're satisfied with.
Well, we'll still need to discuss it with the special permit quorum that we're required to
Oh,
do.
no, I'm not expecting any decisions.
Yeah.
I think Rob and I were hoping to get some, that was good to put in writing in advance, our thoughts on the flexible. And obviously, the big issue is the house, which fortunately, we all start in the same place, loving the house. But that's what we hope to discuss tonight, especially when I heard there's only 3 out of 5. Any decision, we need all 5.
Right. Imai, maybe you could just sort of read into the record the correspondence we've gotten on this application since the last hearing session.
Okay. So, the first one I will read in is is from Jonathan regarding this application. So it is a bit long one, so bear with me as I go through this.
What's the date on that?
October 2nd, 2018.
Yeah.
Dear members of the
Yeah,
board.
by the way, sorry,
Yeah.
don't mean to interrupt, but since it's dated October 2nd, obviously, we on the board haven't had a chance to really look at it.
I understand.
Okay, sorry.
The owners of 98 Love Lane, Mary and Rob Provenzano, have had many discussions about what to do with 98 Love Lane in order to enable them to remain at that address. Rob is a lifelong Weston resident. Mary and Rob have lived at 98 Love Lane for 11 years. They have made significant improvements to the property since they purchased it from Pam Fox. They are passionate about the house and plan to live there for the foreseeable future, and hope it will still be standing long after they have left, but cannot afford to remain at 98 Love Lane unless they split off and sell a house lot, the new lot. To the lot their house post to the lot with their house post-division will be referred to as the remaining lot. The Provenzanos have decided that they are unwilling to subject their house to any restrictions which would limit the flexibility of a subsequent owner of the remaining lot to use the house as the owner chooses. They understand that any proposal to alter the house or to build a replacement house on the remaining lot will have to go before the planning board in order to amend site plan approval, but it is quite a leap to go from site plan approval to either a preservation restriction or a house in which the owner will have to receive permission to amend the special permit in order to either put an addition or build a new house on the remaining lot. Provenzanos are unwilling to agree to preservation restriction or a two-lot flexible subdivision which contain restrictions as part of the special permit which forbid removing the house or which make it very difficult to alter the house. They are willing to listen to the Historical Commission Wednesday night to hear what parts of the house the members deem significant. In recent flexible subdivisions permits, the question has been asked by the planning board, what is in it for the town of Weston if we grant you flexible subdivision approval? The following are benefits this project either will or can the town of Weston. Construction of a conventional subdivision road would require raising of the circa 1904 house at 98 Love Lane. Construction of a conventional subdivision road would have a greater visual impact on Love Lane, a designated scenic road, than the proposed flexible subdivision. The Provenzanos are willing to donate to the town of Weston property at the rear of the remaining lot. As presently configured at 3.5 acres, 98 Love Lane presents as an estate lot. The Provenzanos are told that someone who purchases the entire parcel will probably want to raise the existing house and put a large, oversized house on their lot. In contrast, they are told that if their property is divided into two lots, with a house being built on the new lot, it becomes much less likely that someone buying the remaining lot will raise the existing house. The house adds too much value to the remaining lot. The buyer will have paid too much to then raise the house, build a new house, and make a profit. Reducing the size of the remaining lot by donating land to the town of Weston will also make it even less likely a buyer will be able to justify raising the house. The Provenzanos have to sell at least some of 98 Love Lane. If the Provenzanos are able to sell a new lot and continue to own the remaining lot, the Provenzanos will continue to maintain the house in the same manner they have for the last 11 years. The better the job the Provenzanos do in maintaining the house, the more it will be worth, and the less likely a buyer will be able to financially justify taking it down. Provenzanos are willing to work with the planning board on what will be built on the new lot. They will accept a size limitation of 7,000 square foot RGFA. Looking at other houses on the street, especially recently built houses which were built very close to the street, 7,000 square feet is a very reasonable figure. The Provenzanos' house is 4 stories high, including looking from the street. Their house is higher than 37 feet. The house at 90 Love Lane on the other side of the proposed lot presents as 4 stories when viewed from the proposed lot. Given those facts, the zoning bylaw sets a reasonable height limitation for a house on the new lot. In the event it is deemed desirable by the board, the Provenzanos are open to pushing the proposed envelope on the new lot further back on the lot, provided they are permitted to put the septic system in front of the building envelope. The Provenzanos are willing to discuss the architectural style of the house to be built on the new lot, but they do not want to unduly handcuff a prospective owner. They are not experts, but they and their consulting architect would like to see a house built on the new lot which complements and does not overshadow the house at 98 Love Lane. Provenzanos are willing to discuss the contents of this letter with the planning board, but want each member to understand their position in advance of Wednesday's meeting. If these conditions are unacceptable, they will withdraw their application or other ways to maximize their investment in this property. The Provenzanos look forward to meeting with the planning board Wednesday to discuss this property.
Right. And I don't think we'll be able to give a response to the letter until all the members of the board have had a chance to weigh in and be part of the discussion.
Okay. No chance to get some reaction from the three of you tonight?
Well, what else have we received in the way of documentation?
And we have a letter from Pam Fox. I'll pull up right now. I would like to reiterate my hope that the planning board.
Actually, maybe we just all read that, it's right there on the screen.
Okay. This is the end here, the last is just the side, the closing, so.
Is that the end of it? I can't tell.
Yeah.
That's the end of it, yeah, the last thing is just the, thing, closing.
Okay, and what else have we got?
Historical,
Which we just,
which just came
Here, just here.
tonight, yeah, just came tonight, so.
so you don't have that on the screen, so maybe you should read that.
Yeah, that one I'll read. The 1904 main block of the Williamson Farlow House, located at 98 Love Lane, is a handsome three-story Federal Revival house attributed to Boston architect Joseph Chandler in excellent condition. A two-story wing, probably designed by Samuel Meade to the north, was added between 1909 and 1936. A one-story screen porch was also added then on the south side. There is also a 2.5-story barn built into the slope on the north side. In the opinion of the undersigned Weston Historical Commission members, the house did contribute to the character of the Love Lane historic area until recently, but that character is now largely eroded. The main block for the house is the only part of the structure that should be considered worthy of preservation, as it may be the only example of a three-story Federal Revival house in Weston. It should be noted there are several important examples of Federal period houses in Weston, including 21 Crescent Street, the Sears House, 639 Boston Post Road, the Isaac Fisk House, and 177 Boston Post Road, the Lemuel Jones House, now the
I
Gifford School.
think you need to indicate the dates, the circa dates.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's important.
The Sears House, 1812, the Isaac Fisk House, 1805, and the Lemuel Jones House, 1807, now the Gifford School. The latter is a three-story, four-square house and may be a prototype for 98 Love Lane. On a preservation importance scale, keeping these earlier houses is more crucial than the 20th century replica at 98 Love Lane.
That's signed by 5 out of the 7 commission members.
Yes.
2 were not at the meeting,
Yeah.
I suppose.
As I understand it, yes.
Okay. And then what else did we get?
Then there's the opinions from
Katie.
yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, what about my letter? Is it the letter from the board?
I didn't see it.
You never got my letter?
I never did.
You might,
No.
I sent you a letter.
I don't have a letter from you.
I sent a letter from Mary and I to the board.
We didn't see it.
That's regretful.
We're gonna be continuing anyway, maybe you could
When was it
rescind
sent?
Sure.
When was it sent?
We did.
I think it's pretty similar to my letter.
Okay.
It is,
I'm not-
pretty- it is, yeah, it is. It's
I'm not
pretty-
giving him due justice, but
Yeah, that's, okay, all right, so
Okay.
if you could
I
send
didn't
that.
plagiarize, but, but it was a sincere letter
Okay.
sent off.
No,
Yeah.
we know
Um,
it's sincere.
I think it's an important letter as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will make sure you get that.
So yeah, send it to me again so we can have that into the record.
Okay. It's gonna take me a while to find it.
You don't have to find it
Yeah.
now,
Okay.
necessarily now.
board as opposed to
Okay,
piecemeal
yeah.
responses. I mean, what we're talking about, Jonathan, is whether to respond to your letter, just the three of us, without the other two being here to weigh in on their thoughts and opinions. You know, we'd rather have the whole board respond rather than piecemeal responses.
But if we're missing one, next time what happens?
We won't be. If we have to wheel the person in, we'll do it. You know, this is a one-off thing, it almost never happens. Yeah.
We only need 4.
We only need 4, we don't need all 5.
We don't need all 5.
Well,
anyway, so-
let me ask, we don't need to bring in the architect and,
No,
you know, because there's some things that we want to discuss, like, you know, can we be you know, should the board allow it? Could we take off the wing and put on an addition? Is it necessary for me to spend money on an architect to take a look at some of those plans possibly in the future? There's things like that that I want to get a sense of as to where we're going. I mean,
Yeah.
if I don't have a sense of where we're going, you know, this goes on and on and on.
But you're not gonna have a plan, so.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have a plan, but I mean, you know, these are the things that I wanted to kind of
yeah.
begin to iron out so that we can move forward.
Well, it wasn't a public meeting with the historical, so pretty much we were listening, not back and forth, but we were encouraged by the fact that they agreed that the wing is not significant. In fact, Rob thinks it's a detraction to the house. And I don't think we can argue that the main block is significant, although the rear of that house has more additions than listed there. That's lost. The front's beautiful, sides, especially the side looking up towards Highland. Can't argue with that. They're very significant. And, so letting you know in advance, you know, a special permit that if someone wants to do additions or subtractions, if that's reasonable, stick in something like that.
Yeah.
They want to be preserved.
Yeah.
I think to me, it comes down to if someone well on down the road wants to raise the property, we'd like them to have to come in on a site plan approval under a special permit, but not have a prohibition. And I think that's for the Provenzanos is going to be the crux of the issue to them. So I know I'm only talking to 3 of you, but letting you know in advance. And they want to save it, but they just, you know,
We're
that's.
gonna have to say it all over again in a couple of weeks.
Well, I'm going to start working on you for
Yeah.
They're just afraid it's going to, they want to save it, but they need to raise, they don't want to be too concerned that they won't be able to sell that house down the road.
Okay, all right. Again, my sincere apologies. Believe me, the circumstances could be helped, and
No, it's fine. And, you know, it gives us a little bit more time, and I just want the board to realize how pensive and deliberate and
yeah,
thoughtful Mary and I have been by kicking this down the road so that we can figure out where we really stand on this.
well, I
And
appreciate your
understand
patience.
that, yeah.
When's the next meeting?
The next meeting is the 17th, but that one is way too filled up.
So I
to
can't,
do
because we
this.
kicked a
I
lot of stuff.
can't make
Yeah.
that one anyway.
What's that?
November 7th.
Okay.
November 7th.
Yeah, so November 7th would be the next meeting that we could do this.
20,
November 7th.
November 7th.
Right after town meeting.
Yeah, Mary's gonna be disappointed because she's gonna fill this in.
Well, if that's town meeting, does that mean it's not happening?
No, it's right before town meeting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Town meeting is
Town meeting, right, we can't have this thing before town meeting.
Right.
so November 7th?
November 7th.
You can tell her.
Yeah, it's driving on.
Mhm, sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, again, tell her we're really sincerely sorry. See if that makes any difference.
It's me that's gonna be sorry, so.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
No.
What?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Just when you have a chance.
Like I said,
No minutes.
No formal.
I sent you a draft response to it. She was
Oh, wait, I'm sorry you didn't get my letter.
Yeah.
Well, you have a great advocate.
Oh, yes, I think Pam has some weight here.
But she's in the flood. So that, I just remember that, you know,
And really,
the judgment tells you, you
you
don't
know,
give
a
her
lot
due
of
process if she really does go and appeal.
what has occurred and brought us through this process is not
The CEO.
a desire.
The appeal period is.
There you go, that's even.
Everything is done, yeah.
There's no reason, it's a good sign.
You know, I just really don't have it.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, no, I don't think she has any standing. I
I
just wondered.
Okay,
cool, thank you.
Can I just ask you a quick question as well?
A lot of patients. I will.
Some ways.
Just right.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah. Switch sides and somewhere else to get really one side. It's narrow enough.
Okay, I think we're ready to start the presentation of 11 Bradford Road. Who's here to make the presentation?
I can speak about it.
All right, who are you, please?
I am Colin Hand from Blade of Grass,
All right.
the landscape design and installation company.
All right, and just to sort of set the table.
Sure.
We typically ask the presenters to make their presentation in 15, 20 minutes. That then gives us some time for our consultants to comment and then for the board to comment.
I'm aiming for 5 minutes.
Okay.
I think we can get this wrapped up real quick.
Yeah.
And you guys can tell me if I didn't tell you enough. How's that sound? All right, so 11 Bradford Road. The project in question is revolving around a 3-bay car barn / garage that's going to be tucked into the slope so that it's subterranean. The top of it is actually going to be lawn that comes off the, should I stand up by it so I can point to stuff?
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Got a pointer too if you want to.
Just, I've got shaky hands, you won't know what I'm pointing at. So you have the proposed garage here, and you can kind of see how the topography slopes down. The idea is that that's going to go and tuck into the slope and will be filled on top, so that this level here will be lawn area outside. This is the front door of the house. Adding a gravel driveway that will come up from Kings Grant and snake around like this to the entry of the garage. So you're coming down on the lower end up to the garage.
You said a garage because of the sidewalk, it was being described as a workshop.
It is. It's a garage / workshop. They're going to be building kit cars in there.
Okay,
So yeah, that's it.
okay.
A real garage.
It's not yeah. It's not for everyday use. It's more of a hobby
Okay.
garage and maybe some side storage. You know, it's not going to be where the cars are coming in and out every night. So.
Okay.
So the drainage structures that are associated with the development are going to be located in an area that's somewhat cleared out currently, but there's a few trees in there that will need to be removed to fit in these Caltech systems here.
So that's being leveled out?
So yes, it's got to be
Square area?
So, and a wellhead for irrigation.
That part's already pretty level.
It
It's
is,
just coming up a
but
little
the-
bit to accommodate what the water table, right?
Mhm. We're proposing putting in an irrigation well down over here, where it's further away from the neighboring properties.
Well,
next, we'll go to.
Let's go to the landscape plan, yeah, so.
There you go. Oh, sorry.
So, in order to minimize the impact of the view from Kings Grant, because there are some trees coming out, there's about 22 trees coming out, we're proposing planting 33 as screening along, so that one of the reasons for having the driveway come in there is that it baffles the view in from the street. So we're using screening trees here, here, and all the way around the edges of this, because it is coming up and will be a little bit more pronounced than the existing grade, as well as the facade of the garage, which will be stone to match the rounded fieldstone that's on the house currently, and there's also a retaining wall here that's a rounded fieldstone as well. To access up to the upper level, there'll be a set of stairs coming through here, because this, this is the level that the basement exits out at for the main house. And that's a mixture of hemlocks and green giant arborvitaes, which, because it's pretty shady, is really the only thing that's going to tolerate that condition.
What is a mixture? What is a mixture of arborvitae?
The trees.
Oh,
The trees. So there's some hemlocks in varying sizes, so that it looks a little bit more naturalistic. That was one of the comments at the site walk that we responded to, and why this plan might look a little bit different than what you saw originally. And then as a way to soften it even further, we're proposing a shrub layer that kind of works in and out of these trees of rhododendrons and viburnums that are going to be needed. As far as lighting goes, we're going to be adding 3 sconces that will be dark skies, one at the doorway here, and then between the pieces between the garage base here, and as well as some step lighting that will be tucked in underneath the tread of the steps for safety.
So what would be the total lumens?
It's tough to say because there are some spots that are on the spotlights that are on the house that need to be taken out. So right now, when I counted it, we're still under the threshold. We're about 20,000, but once those spotlights come out, it's going to drop by a few thousand, even more. So.
Okay. So we need to sort of confirm the final number sometime, Ema.
Okay. And there's also some fixtures on there that aren't shrouded, and I'm assuming that their lumen count will go down once they get a shroud on them as well.
But these are all dark sky.
The new ones are, yes.
Okay.
And the exact fixture hasn't been picked out yet, but we will get the cut sheet before it's installed and get that to you.
The purpose of the retaining wall below the building is what, to let light in the side, or?
It's just so that it's to that retaining wall will be massive if it was one, so we're trying to create a step back terracing of the walls, so that the side here where there is some grade is going to be trying to be dealt with in a tiered fashion rather than just one solid wall at the front.
Because I only see one wall.
There's one here and there's one there.
Okay.
There's a wall here and then there's a retaining wall there. So we're trying to.
And the upper wall below the building looks like, are those 1 foot contours or 2?
Are they 1 foot?
Those are 2 foot
2 foot contours, so the top of that wall is.
No, they're 1 foot.
1 foot contours? Okay. Okay, so it's like the top of it is about 11 feet above the grade below it. It looks like, just counting the contours.
The facade height from
No,
this side,
the-
yeah, this side.
The total height of that wall at the top is about 11 feet, right?
But it's not coming straight across. It's going to have a pitch down as you get further from the building.
Yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
but at the building, it's
At
about
the
11.
building, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 8 feet, and is the proposal, it's gonna be a stone wall? It looks like it's stone on the drawing.
It's probably going to be a veneer, but it will have appearance of a
Stone
stone wall. Yeah.
And the others are also stone veneer, or no?
Yes, the staircasing and stuff will be stone.
Okay,
Not that you really see it from
yeah.
the public space.
No, I see. Okay,
But we wanted to match the stone in there on the side of the house. The walkout basement
Mhm.
has a stone in there, yeah.
And the stone too here.
okay.
Don't forget, there's a door on the one side, there's a window on the other side, so that's essentially why those retaining walls are there.
Here.
Right. Okay.
And then For safety purposes, there will need to be a railing on top along this edge. And we're thinking that's gonna be a 42-inch kind of cable rail system, so it's a little less in your face.
Okay, so have you detailed that at all, or?
We had some photos that we sent. Do you have
Oh,
those
okay.
in there?
If they are in your concept, then I should have.
They don't.
So, I mean, I can provide the detail on it, but, you know, it's pretty standard horizontal cable rail, about 6-foot panels with a wooden handrail on top.
This is interesting. I've never, and this is totally off the subject. Is this considered an accessory structure? Possible housing? I mean, we usually approve spas or outbuildings and things like that. Would it just be like a barn? Is this like, I'm just kind of
We've been calling it a car barn.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Garages.
Detached garage.
Detached garage,
Yeah.
things
The
like
low-grade
this would be.
garage.
Okay, yeah, just, is there a bathroom inside there?
There'll be a small
Small bathroom.
bathroom.
Not a full bath.
Yeah, do you have an elevation of the long wall? Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this
There's the
is,
stone, there's the stone retaining walls, and
Yeah.
then, what is the material, it's hard to tell what that material is on the cladding for the, on the building, what is it? It looks like a fish net, but.
It's a Port Temple Fieldstone.
it's stone, but it's a hatch.
Stone.
It's just a cat hatch. I mean, it's gonna,
Fieldstone.
it's New England fieldstone. It's pretty
Okay.
much what you see. It's the ubiquitous rounded New England fieldstone. But it'll probably be a veneer there, because, you know, do full bed on it.
I hope it looks better than that.
Spider-Man.
Where are the doors?
Pretty industrial. now.
Yeah. Yeah, CAD doesn't have a lot of like
The doors?
great textures to
You're
it.
gonna match the.
The doors are wood, sort of, not exactly like that, wood to match the doors on the real garage wall.
So it's solid, I just can't tell.
Yeah, with
Yes.
a transcoat, so those nice, kind of faux barn garage doors, that's not a good representation, but if you.
You mean
on
like
the-
raised panels type or some kind of cross?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, if you look at them, you can't
Smaller
see the,
Okay,
and then I think there was a small transom.
Transom window on top.
Transom window at the top.
Are they smaller than garage doors, or are they standard size garage doors?
Standard.
And they roll up? Or
Yeah.
they-
Yeah.
okay. And that's not a stair on the left side, that's just the slope, no, on the left side?
No, that's just slope. That's gonna be plantings. Planting on the slope.
You can see the two levels of the walls, a lower one and a higher one.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the hand is.
so would this structure need air conditioning? Are you putting in an AC, a furnace? I mean, first we get that.
It's gonna put like a Mitsubishi heat exchanger.
Okay, like one of those things hanging off the wall type thing?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what is generator?
It'll have electric to it.
Right, but no, you're not gonna count on it during a hurricane, you need to get there working.
What's that?
You're not gonna
Yeah,
count
the
on
kit
needing
car's
to be
gonna
out there
take a
working
break
during
for a
a hurricane.
If the power goes out, we'll trust it working that day.
No, that might be your safest spot, right? It's below ground.
It's true, the bunker.
Bunker.
If it's a tornado,
I was
it
gonna
goes
suggest that we should build a little tunnel to our basement, it could be like our nuclear bomb shelter.
Yeah, well,
It's underground and concrete, so it's pretty safe.
actually, we didn't ask that question. What's the square footage in the structure?
It's 1,880 square feet.
Sorry, just one comment. I gotta say, it's pretty well screened from the street. I mean, the fact that the driveway comes around and meets it, means that I think it's gonna be pretty well shielded, at least from the outside looking in. At least that's the way it appeared on the sidewalk. Sorry, Diana, what?
I'm just curious, so what's the RGFA?
Of this, it's 18 in total.
Does it count as as part of the
As
RGFA?
part of the RGFA.
We went before the zoning board to ask that question. We're under 6,000 in the house and above ground garage. But there was some ambiguity about the bylaw, and the zoning board of appeals suggested we come here.
Like, if it's below grade, why should we even count?
More than 50% below average.
And
Yeah.
it's
they
definitely
kind of
below
said,
grade.
well, it's a garages count and it's a garage, is kind of what we heard, like, so, yeah, it's not.
That goes back to town council opinion from 10 years ago.
So it's part of the RGFA?
Yeah.
It is part of the RGFA, yeah.
Because, so if it wasn't a garage, if it was an actual.
If we had labeled it something other than the garage.
Panic room.
We would not have okay.
Wine storage.
I was not willing to change the label, despite many people suggesting I do so. It's not the way I was raised.
So the RGFA is 1,800 plus 599 or something?
Basically, yeah.
Basically,
I mean, it's
what
just
is the
usually
actual
written.
total? What are we up to now?
77.
Yeah, it's, here, it's on the agenda. No, it's not. But I have it in the application.
Okay. So it'll be in the decision?
It'll be in the decision, yeah. I know the number, I have
Okay,
it.
all right.
So the house must have been at 5,999
Yeah.
with the additional, bringing it up to about 7,000.
Yeah, that's what, it's in the 7,000 range, if I recall it. I think 7,100 or so.
Do you have any other drawings, a section through the?
We do have.
Section, I saw a couple.
Yep.
Yep. Section.
I mean, when you zoom out, you really see that it's pretty tucked in and
Pretty
low
zoom in.
impact within the. I mean, yeah, it almost kind of works with the way the neighborhood kind of jumps down on Spruce Hill.
Yeah, we actually wouldn't have done it until my son came up with the idea of burying it. I wasn't willing to have any more structure.
So can you orient us, where's Kings Grant, where's the house?
So, here's Bradford Road. So this is the section, I'm trying to think, this one, can you zoom out for me, Mike? Because I've got a locus map on here that might be good. So this section here,
Picks up the house up the hill.
is coming, I don't know where it is tonight, so this one here through Bradford Road.
This is you, Paul, right? Yeah?
This is Paul.
This is, yeah, so this is Bradford, and this is Kings Grant. Yeah.
This is section A, so you kind of see, this is Kings Grant, this is the house across the street. You got a vegetated border, here's the driveway section, in front of the garage. The depth of the garage is widest through this section. Up to the Bradford Road area here, and then up to the neighboring houses up the street. Here we're going through 11 Bradford.
The house itself.
The house itself. Actually, I think I flipped them, never mind, sorry. So this one is actually the short section, the long section's the one through here. Just can't read the font, so that's hard.
I assume Kim's taking a look at the landscape.
Kim's taking a look at
She's
this and
okay?
she's fine with it, yeah. She's taking a look at the revised one that we've got today and she's good with it. She believes it's well screened.
Did she ship an email to you, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did she say?
Where are we?
She says, this looks good.
There you go.
I think this looks great, even though I had a little concern about the linearity of the planting before. It's on the homeowner's side of the existing woodland. I think this will look very natural and take less time to feel totally integrated into the woods. No further comments.
Okay. Dave, you're okay with that,
Yeah, actually,
this engineering?
yeah,
Yeah.
it got reviewed through, and then I checked it anyway, but,
DPW?
yeah, Steve Sweeney.
Yeah. Okay.
So other than the plantings that are on the roof, is the rest of it just sod, or?
Yeah, it's gonna be sod. I mean, there's not really a depth to establish anything other than like a low shrub layer, so that's why kind of some of the trees were placed off to the sides. But we did want to put some verticality to the sides of it, so it didn't feel like it was like not blending into the woodland on the other side of it.
Let me see the landscape.
Yep. I don't know if this helps. I think holding up between this morning's conversation and mine. It's gonna be hard for everyone else to see, but I'll try and hold it up.
You can use a chair, put it over the,
Well, the camera can't see.
ah,
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, yeah. so you can kind of see where the lawn is. You got the driveway coming through, screening trees. Just as a note in clarity, there are a few existing trees we're going to try to preserve in the wood line, so some of these trees will be site placed to the sensitivity around those roots, so that the exact location might not be as represented here, but the idea is to establish a very thick and undulating screen.
Yeah.
So how many trees are coming down and how many new?
22 will come down, 33 will go back in.
And is the current mixture all evergreen like you're proposing, or?
No, but they're canopy trees now, so you have like, 80, 100-foot oak trees, and we're just not going to be able to grow anything deciduous underneath there that will have any sort of vigor.
It's heavily wooded, that
It's
whole area
really
is very
wooded.
heavily. Like you can't see the area now in the spring. or the
So
fall.
we're a little limited in our palette, so to speak, but
So are there any deciduous trees?
there's one deciduous tree here where there's some sun, but there is some deciduous shrub layer that will do okay with the viburnums. But also we didn't want it to kind of, because it is uphill, we wanted to make sure that it was screened lower. The deciduous trees tend to be higher.
Yeah. And it was.
Okay. Paul, did you have any comments?
Well, I do have a comment. First of all, I neither favor nor disfavor this. I take no position on this. However, I noticed that they have said that they tend to use it for purposes and not for ordinary garage purposes. I am concerned about the driveway when it comes out Kings Grant Road. I think there may be a poor visibility situation and a very narrow driveway, which could create a hazard. And I wonder if that's important. If it's only used for hobby purposes, then that would hardly ever happen that you actually drive in there. However, I can imagine in a snowstorm or something that they would park a car in there because getting up Bradford Hill is sometimes difficult in the snow. So I think that even the present owner could use it on a routine basis during winter. Any future owner might decide to use it for actual parking as opposed to a hobby. And so I would hope that the lane coming in would be adequate to support that use. And it looks to me from here that there's going to be a visibility problem for people coming out and other people going along Kings Grant Road. They might not be able to see
Can you
each
go
other
back
too
to the
well.
site plan, Imai, where it shows the corner? It is, I'm just trying to get the scale here. I mean, it's 14 feet wide, which is what the fire department wants. We want it
I'd like it
small.
to be narrow.
We'd like it
Right.
9
So would
feet
we.
wide.
But that's pretty broad.
Yeah, we would go as narrow as was deemed safe and allow the fire department if you allow. I can't speak for a future owner, Paul, of course, we're definitely not gonna, there's gonna be no pavement, we're not gonna plow this in the winter, so there's no chance of a car going this in the winter.
That's right, it's gravel.
It's gravel.
How far from the corner is?
I mean, the radius, it's at least 30 feet from where the radius starts, and then, as far as the intersection goes, it's a very wide intersection. I doubt you'd really have any. The worst visibility would be coming from this way turning left, and you're a good 50, 60 feet away.
Yeah, but those cars are on the other side of the road
Yeah.
from you, if you're, you know what I mean?
Right. I'm not a traffic engineer.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that on a street that's 25 miles per hour, that it won't pose a major issue most of the time.
I mean, when we stood, we stood there for a while, it didn't
Yeah.
feel like it was,
I don't see a sightline problem, I
No.
mean, just based on the sidewalk.
even if it was like kind of their driveway.
It's not much different than the neighbor's driveway, the next house down.
Yeah.
They come out the same way.
What I am interested in though is why the fire department is requiring the 14 feet. Typically what they tell you is because that's where they want to pull, that's what they need for the ladder truck.
Mhm.
But I can't see them using a ladder truck in a one-story concrete garage.
That's underground.
Good point.
And we've been making the argument that the access could easily come from the paved road
Yeah.
above.
So
Yeah.
that's,
You could, yeah, absolutely, this is just one of those rigid rules where they say, whatever it is, it's gotta be 14 feet
Mhm.
wide. And I'm just wondering why. this case. I
We would love if you had some
I
influence over them to tell them that they have their deal, you have your deal, I guess.
What about
If we say anything, tell them to make it 16 feet.
This is a gravel
And you'll have-
driveway, and normally we've had people, I mean, they have them say we need to pour concrete pillar post things so that the stabilizers can go down. This is a gravel driveway. It's not paved at all.
I don't even want gravel the whole thing, I want mostly small.
This is odd, it's odd.
Maybe they didn't understand the use of it.
They did.
Yeah, they went,
I wasn't there,
I know
that's
they
a part of
went,
the
they went
conversation.
interested in them, and I talked to Dr. Fishman a lot about this too, and trying to like give him the arguments as to why this should be smaller, you know, one of them being, yeah, you do have a paved driveway up at the top that you can use. I think, if I recall correctly, one of the arguments the fire department landed on was a possible 4-car garage. They just looked at all the fuel, and once you get so much fuel in there, they consider it hazardous.
Yeah, but you don't need a ladder truck to get to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's, you know, there's, I mean, they
That's a good
can
point.
play a card, any card you lay out. I mean, the kind of the good part about this is the gravel part,
Mhm.
and, you know,
It's true, they didn't say you better pave this so we can bring in our emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
The bombs.
and, you know,
I don't want to.
in due time, without steady traffic,
Right, it just.
The natural
yeah,
vegetation
the
comes
edges-
through.
The edges start creeping to the
Mhm.
gravel. Right.
but this is, we kind of gave them the talking points,
Didn't work.
and, you
Well,
know,
we've done this before, we just stipulate,
Yeah, we just say
12
whatever,
feet,
12
that's-
feet.
duke it out. It's not the first, wouldn't be the first time. Sometimes the arguments are they need that width in order to get trucks by each other. And
yeah, I think
The
I was
one thing I
talking to
could say-
Dave, I got like ambulances, I'm like, ambulance can fit in like an 8-foot lane, you know, like,
Yeah.
but so it's,
So you don't actually think it's worth it?
well,
Big deal about
I mean, that's your guys' call. I mean, I do get the feeling that it's like mom and dad are fighting, so the kids have to, you know, kind of, you know,
Yeah, I feel like the kid here, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah, so.
I
I
would
feel like
hope
you have
that-
to lay low.
I would,
Just keep
I
it.
would love for it to be 8 feet, 0 feet, I'm not, we ain't gonna get out, but rarely, we want it to be as wooded and as invisible as possible. But if it becomes like mom and dad fighting, then we have to wait till February to get a resolution, that would disappoint me, because we actually we were ready to do this in the spring until the RGFA thing came up, and so, like, our
Can I
fences.
make one suggestion? My name's Ian Rubin, by the way, from Marking Rubin. The gravel road might not have to be 14 feet. You could quite easily have grass shoulders on either side.
We've done that.
Ah, they can drive
Right,
my grass.
and
moss.
have like 2 feet on either side and a 10-foot wide driveway. That would be a problem.
What we've done in the past is the reinforced earth, because one of their arguments is they need the width to set up the ladder truck and,
Yeah, the stabilizers have to go.
right, so you could just say, what if it's stabilized earth on either side?
So the thing with that is, if you think of that versus a 14-foot gravel, and this is gravel, this isn't even like, this isn't even processed stone or anything like that on top, right? Like
No.
we're talking, this is a 14-foot wide car path.
Yeah, I was hoping like dirt or moss and just a couple of tire tracks.
Right.
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 Right, so if for the practical purposes, if these guys leave with just a 14-foot gravel driveway, in 1 year, that will be 12.
Yeah.
In 1 year, another year, it'll be, depending on how much they use it, it will be 10. You know, if we do 10 with the stabilized shoulders, trying to get 10 tomorrow, those shoulders will never grow, they'll stay.
What does stabilized mean? It's packed in earth or something?
There's different things you can
Yeah.
use, there's like these, like concrete rings is like one level.
Oh, so it won't grow into it.
They cover with grass, but you'll never get like a,
Well, I think your idea is great, if we just let it grow in, but with the exception of the opening, to Paul's point, we want to have visibility when we turn. I already get nervous at the corner there for those hedges up on the right side of Pete's Grant that I can't see, so it can take me down.
That's exactly right. There are some areas where there's poor visibility.
I think
There's
a spot way up here where there's hedges that are like really tall, and when we are coming down Bradford and turn left, I always go really slowly to see something getting down. So we would want to keep the mouth open.
I think there is room enough to keep the mouth open.
Yeah.
If it's the judgment of the panel that there is sufficient visibility, then I would definitely support the application.
Okay. Is there any, are there any other residents who would like to make comments?
We had some residents come to, on the other side of Keats Grant, who showed up for the sidewalk, and they were pleased with the trees, and their only request was that we don't do construction really early in the morning.
Will be conditioned to.
Yeah.
I seriously see it as if you just do it exactly, just say 14 feet gravel, it's basically a devegetated area, and it's not expensive to do a rough gravel driveway. If we get into having to stabilize the sides,
Well, I'm worried if we give them the 10 with 2 on either side of the thing, that will hold the shoulders back. Like it will be.
It won't go in, yeah.
It won't kind of move in. I see this as a way of kind of saying, okay, you got what you wanted.
right. And I assume that this is probably going to be so non-traveled that you're going to end up having to have your lawn service mow it once a year.
Probably.
Seriously.
Yeah, I would think so.
And you just say to them, no, no, no.
You're just trying to get more work out of it.
10 feet.
That's on record now. No. I was also going to say that for the visibility, one of the things is this right of way here is pretty thick. I'm just making sure that we kind of trim back the bushes at the opening for visibility so that a car doesn't just pop out on people driving through. So I think, you have about 10 feet there. If we kept that trimmed back, you'd be able to see somebody coming out a lot better.
That's overgrown over the years.
Yeah.
It used to be trimmed back very nicely.
We did have a house that came in front of us recently that was keeping an old garage that they weren't going to use every day, and they did just have like the 2 little paved.
The tire paths of Keystone or something.
That's what the Wetterells had in their first house. They had they have this.
That's where I got the idea. Is Conrad and Marguerite? They used to live across the street from me on Greystone, and their new house, they did that barn in the back. Is that what you're talking about?
No, this was their house on Highland.
Yeah. And they had the
Yeah.
That's where I got the idea.
They had the tire tracks just in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could build something.
Well, what on Meadowbrook that we just reviewed?
That's the Wetterell second house.
Right.
No, the one on Meadowbrook.
Not the Wetterells.
Oh, yeah, they're doing the lower.
104.
Yeah, it's 104, they're doing the lower one.
Yes, the lower one.
2 tire paths.
I think that looks nice.
That's probably what it's going to end up being.
And that was.
The only part that's going to get worn
I know.
is the
This
tires.
is- All right, well,
So do 14 with 2 of those in a row?
what I would say is 12 feet, and if the fire department pushes back, make it 14.
For a year.
That's what I
Do the 2
I would make one more argument for 12 feet and then make it 14 if they just stamp their foot and,
Is there any chance that's gonna delay us in our date?
Yeah.
No, because if they
No.
say no, we'll just.
You just
wait.
have to do it.
Well, you'll put it into your,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we'll.
And then it would never, it can't be paved without.
Yeah, if you ever pave it, then that's an amendment to site plan approval, so then we have a bigger discussion about it then.
But I'd put it in as a condition,
Just
just so that
Just so it's
they always
doubly
know.
sure, yeah.
If anybody paves, it'll be a future owner after that.
Yeah.
Okay. Easy. Okay, I think that's all the questions we had. Everybody? Okay. In that case, what we'll do is continue the hearing to review the draft decision, which doesn't take testimony. We just look at the decision, issue the decision, and that's the end of it. And then our process is over.
And that's the 17th, correct?
That's the 17th.
Yeah.
So we're on 17.
We're already on.
Yeah.
And then the date the permit is issued is,
The date that we sign it then usually is, I make any changes, that I have to the permit after that meeting. Usually I get it filed the following Monday.
And then is there a waiting period after that?
Then there's a 20-day appeal period.
But you can go ahead. I mean,
Go ahead, what?
you can start construction during the appeal period.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
So
At
you
your
can,
It's
you
your
can,
risk, but
Yeah.
who's gonna oppose it?
It's Paul.
I don't know, but if somebody did, and we,
Yeah, well,
what happens if, I mean, could they appeal it, you might say, oh, never mind, you can't build it?
no.
Oh, okay.
goes through the zoning board of appeals.
They have to have some
Back there again.
reason to object to what you're doing and
Well, it's already been zoned appeals.
Yeah, so building permit, we don't sign until the appeal period is over. But things like lot prep, once you have your erosion
Tree
controls in,
removal.
things that don't need a building permit, you can start.
absolutely.
You're just gonna start the structure.
Yeah,
So we
I
can
won't
start
sign a
clearing.
building permit until that.
You can do
appeal
excavation.
You have material delivered.
So you could probably get pretty far down the road before it gets to
Yeah,
be
we're just trying to get
built.
them before frost.
Yeah.
I have to commend you on the design of this. It's refreshing to see a piece of architecture that's trying to disappear.
Well, I wish my son were here, he went back to college, but literally, we, with the builder, went through multiple designs. And first it was a one-story thing, and I said, I don't want to look down a bunch of shingles. And then he said, okay, well, we make it two-story, and you can like have entry, a storage in the front and garage in the bottom. I said, well, let's like a compound. And we said, we're not doing it. And my son, who was an engineering student, a few days later, he said, Dad, he said, Mom wants the lawn to look nicer, and it's just like ugly slope there, and you don't want to see this thing. Why don't you just put it in a concrete box and cover it with lawn? And I said, oh, yeah. So I take no credit. It's all from my son.
Well, look up Sea Ranch in California.
Sea Ranch. I must say, I did, after he did it, I Googled a bunch, and I found there are a few examples of people who've done this, and people have done some really nice landscaping.
Did Moore do that one? I mean, the subterranean one, or was that later?
It's
Yeah.
a little kind of long.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you guys, good luck.
8:30. 8:38.
He doesn't want to get slowed down, that's his thing. Yeah, no, well, cruising right along. Okay, next up we have removal and replacement of 4 trees at 123 Newton Street.
Oh, actually, let's check in on time first, because how are you doing, Sue? Because we do need to
I'm doing great.
do the decisions. Okay, then we can continue this.
Okay. Which trees are we talking about?
So we have let's see, where am I here? Tree A is a pine tree. It's entirely dead. It's really right close to the driveway and the road.
Oh,
It's
just
very
look at that.
visible.
There it is.
Yeah.
And you get the photos too? Can you see it? Yep, entirely dead. It's easy for me to see this. Let's see. So, that was tree A. I guess I should look at the report. Tree B is, must be the ash.
None of those.
I don't know yet. We're just looking at tree A.
Okay, did you see tree A?
Yeah,
Any
see the tree A.
questions on that?
Where's
So,
that tree A?
what we'd like to do is replace it with a maple.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a red oak. And then tree B is an ash.
Yes.
The one with the key trees.
So certain trees had to be
Yes.
preserved.
Certain trees have to be preserved.
Yeah, none of
Driveway,
these
none
are,
of those.
none of these, no. These
They're
are
all
actually
peripheral.
very far out in our limited work away from the building. And so this second tree is kind of
Tree B.
down.
Here's tree B.
Tree B.
You can't see where they are on the side.
Sure.
Can you see it?
Can you magnify that a little bit?
Yep.
Bring it up some.
Tree B is here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a twin, big twin ash that's not entirely dead, but I'd say it's 75% dead. And it is, he had not first looked at everything, and it's not long from this world, but it's quite large and dangerous.
So tree A and tree D are both along the street. Tree B is somewhat, out beyond. So none of the ones by the infiltration units with the driveway.
No,
Are you proposing to replace these trees?
they'll all be replaced with 2 to 2.5 inch caliper red oaks.
Seems way out of the
So, looking again at tree B, that was the ash,
Correct.
and then maybe we can go back and look at that one.
Tree B?
Yeah. Yep, and tree C, what does that look like?
That's a cherry. And it's hard to see it because it's covered in poison ivy vines
Oh,
and
okay.
other bittersweet. So it's really basically being suffocated.
It's way in the back anyway.
It's in the back,
And then,
correct.
and then tree D, what is, that's on the street.
Tree D
That's on the
is,
street right here.
Don't say what that one is.
D1, D2, D3, those are photographs of the same tree.
Yeah, just different photographs, you guys got them up close to talk about this.
Someone's been eating it.
Somebody already dinged it
Yeah.
long ago.
Oh, somebody hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody will. It's
Yeah, I
all-
was gonna say, the trouble is that those are calmers, traffic calming trees. They do get dinged.
I might have some other photos.
Yeah, what does it look like?
Yeah. Is it salvageable?
What's the problem with it?
Is it dying? I
it's-
mean,
Yeah, it's major trunk damage and infested with poison ivy, and it's a hazard. It's basically pretty much not entirely dead, but it's in major decline. So he's had Acorn Tree look at the trees, and they gave us this little report. And he would like to remove them and put in young trees that are healthy.
Yeah.
Because they are, and right now, while the site is being, demolished and whatnot, it would be the time to make this mess and get the hazardous,
Probably guess it's too close to the right, that's what I said.
maybe, but the tree's been hit. And it's gonna be-
Is it actually in the right of way?
Actually, that's what I'm looking at now, it looks like it is. That looks like it's on the right of way.
In fact, it looks like the trunk is
Looks like it's in
in
the
the
road.
right of way.
Right, yeah.
Maybe that's why I got hit.
Yeah.
Meaning it's down.
Meaning that would be a scenic road tree.
Road decision, it's a different review. Yeah.
So these, like tree, whatever that one arrow is pointing to, isn't that in the scenic road area too?
Which ones?
That,
These?
yeah,
No, those are not in the right of way.
They're not in the right of way.
but isn't the setback off the scenic road 20 feet?
This is,
No.
this is the general scenic road bylaw. It deals with trees and stone walls in the right of way.
Got it, okay.
Okay, so.
So does that mean we need a separate hearing to
Yeah.
review
Yep.
another scenic road?
Yep.
How about the other three?
Those are three we could say fine and dandy. That one, we gotta, somebody has to come back and just go through the scenic roads hearing.
And obviously, you wouldn't be replacing the little red oak in the exact same spot. It would be a little bit more to the southerly.
Presumably be on
It's
the,
like
on the
right
property.
on the property.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be,
So he can't own it?
Nope.
Sorry. The other three fine, that one,
So what do we have to do now? Go to a different board, or?
no,
No.
it's
Same
the
board.
same board, but it's a different process.
It's a different process, so,
Scenic road hearing.
yeah.
We have to issue a permit on it.
So that takes us,
public
that,
meeting.
that takes me to notice a hearing again. Obviously, the board's been out there, so I don't think we need to do a site visit for this again, but we do have to hold a public hearing,
Okay.
a noticed public hearing.
Okay,
So can we move with the other three?
yeah, we'll do a memorandum.
Memo, okay.
That authorizes the removal of those three,
All right,
A, B, and C.
very good. Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll take the next steps.
Okay. I'll be in touch with you, get you the forms for that, and let you.
All right, great. Appreciate it.
You want this back? Mr. Rowland? Okay, next we're talking about amending the irrigation condition at 100 Ridgeway. Who's talking about amending the irrigation condition at 100 Ridgeway? I thought we were done talking about this one forever.
That's what we were.
What's the problem?
So, we designed the house and the lot in a manner thinking that we had the high groundwater, so we kept the house up. We did the footing drains to the cistern, and we did the irrigation well requirement. So I gave Imai the log for the digging the wells. The well's been dug, went down 700 feet, 100% dry. No water.
So the issue here is that you want to be released from the provision that requires you to dig a well to water the grass.
So what they did is they did that, and then we had the backup, which was always the cistern. And so we've been monitoring that for over a year now since the construction started. During the springtime, we get about 50 gallons per day out of the pump. During the summertime, we get nothing for the cistern. So that's definitely not enough water to do anything for irrigation. So I think I know at the time it seems weird, but we were designing this for, the almost a water apocalypse. We want the cistern with the well. We didn't want, we want to make sure we could cover both standards. But by bringing the house up enough, we're not getting enough flow from the actual footing drains outside the house. And so we're not getting any flow to the cistern, which then means we can't get any water for the actual irrigation. So both things that we were going to use to irrigate the lawn aren't working right now.
Okay.
This is in the land of the really high groundwater,
Yeah.
with all the
That's
flooding
the
and all
real
the
shocker.
neighbors.
I don't
Yeah.
get that.
So I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
Well, all those issues kind of disappeared when they changed the driveway. All those objections.
Did?
Yeah.
And so we have, and I think, we do have the lodge, that recharge basin, get that full excavation. We have, as I've mentioned, that we did extensive soil testing out there for this. And we set the footings to be about 18 inches above the groundwater table. So we were hoping that in the spring it's high enough,
Yeah.
it comes up enough that you're gonna get.
At 19 inches, you could sink a shallow well.
Right. And excuse me, I know one of the abutters couldn't be here tonight, she wrote a letter, so there are some other
Right.
concerns she wants addressed, but
Yeah.
the third party we've reviewed, can't say one's related to the other, I don't know, but third party reviews kind of stopped when they moved away from the shared driveway to the separate driveways.
Third party. Okay, so you're talking about a man who's sitting to your left, I think.
Yeah.
Who might have some comments of his own. But the surprise for me is, we spent, how many hearing sessions did we have on this? Because of concern over groundwater and drainage.
Right.
Now we're asked to import water to put it on the grass in a situation where the neighbors all said there's a tremendous water issue. That's.
Well, you have the well, which is gonna be an unteaching well, so.
Yeah, but at least
that
it's-
rock. So that has nothing to do with the groundwater issue. The cistern was the one that we were gonna say, okay, if the cistern worked, we're recycling our own water. The problem is, which this shouldn't be a problem, we set the house high enough that we don't have any water that's getting to the cistern. And so then the artesian well, that's nothing to do with the ground, that's the bedrock's too deep, so we're not able to.
So I don't understand because you raise the house, you don't get water
Yeah, okay.
recharge.
So the cistern
I'm
is
thinking of the
basically-
houses in Bermuda where you collect off the roof and it goes into.
The cistern was gonna be fed by the sub drainage from the
When the
base.
groundwater came up, it was gonna go into the pipe and fill the
And so we were just gonna
So
recycle
where's
that.
your
Could it be fed from the roof?
and all your impervious surfaces going?
That gigantic recharge
That's
basin.
into that.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
almost, basically, it's as big as the house.
Right.
Could it be
Could we
replumbed?
replumb it for a cistern?
Could the roof feed to the cistern with the overflow going to infiltration?
Well, the problem with doing the cistern for the roofs with through drains is the same thing for in the summertime. If we don't get enough flow, that means we have no irrigation. So that's why we were hoping the groundwater and that would equate to enough to have inside the cistern. We'd have enough to actually irrigate the lawn or irrigate the shrubs that we're putting in, or the trees. But if we do the cistern and we just tie it to the roof, I don't think there's gonna be enough flow in the summertime to
Well, it's
actually
totally
irrigate.
random, obviously,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have a wet summer, we can have a dry summer, we can have a water ban coming off of Quabbin, where you can't water your lawn
Yeah.
if you're using, so I don't see that as a real argument. Because if it's a super dry, droughty summer, nobody's supposed to be watering. Except if they can have, that they sink their own well. So that's just kind of the way it is, and we can't, I don't understand why you're asking us for a special dispensation to do MDC water when we do have that big giant roof. When we get a lot of rain, and that's a big roof, big surface area, but I don't think you can reach, I don't know, how big is a cistern usually, how many thousands of gallons? does it-
Well, it's.
You have to do like this calculation where it's kind of like calculus, you have to do like demand and then what's feeding it, and then you come up with like a probability for how often it'll actually be available.
Right.
Try to get that into like an 80% range.
And so maybe you, because there are the plantings, a very expensive, investment in plantings, so you would want to make that the priority for this scarce resource as opposed to sprinkling the lawn. That would be my, I know people laugh at this, but there are wonderful, long, deep-rooted grasses that you can use that don't need to be irrigated, daily. And,
Yeah, I'm just sorry. This only kind of came to us, or to me, with emails, so not to drag you back. But what's the deal with the well? Why can't we do a well?
So the well was installed, and went 700 feet deep, and it didn't get any water. So which I give a lot to E-Mine, it's the deepest well we've ever done, and it's.
and a hit bed.
And why, if there's high water, why aren't they related?
So the well is an artesian well, so it's gonna go through the bedrock and get to the water below. And so the groundwater is above that. It's trapped water above the actual bedrock. And so that's why a cistern that was capturing groundwater would be literally 1% circulation of what that water is. But since we can't get that circulation, that's what we were talking about.
How about a shallower well? I mean, if you've got
Right.
groundwater that's let's say 10 or 20 feet somewhere on that property, why couldn't you tap into that? Non-potable, you're not saying to people you're gonna drink this. It's irrigating water.
Well, to have, you're talking like a dug well, which,
Yeah.
which right now.
People do have.
Yeah, oh no, people do have it, but it's in the summertime, it's dry.
Yeah.
So it's the same.
The retention basin, does that collect water before it goes into the cistern?
No, it's right now the cistern was set up to collect. So right now, this cistern catches a small portion of the house, and then it was taking the forced main, and then the rest of the house went to the actual.
And that's also,
okay.
it's not a closed box.
It's a bottom, it allows it to infiltrate.
Right, but can the retention basin collect less drainage so that it can go to this?
Well, that's what we talked about sending the roof to the cistern.
Increasing the size of the cistern
Right.
storage. Right.
Is there, what about on the demand side? I mean, I know when we do projects, they always, the LAs always do drip irrigation for the shrubby areas.
Yeah.
Is there an equivalent for lawns?
So
That's not just the golf sprinkler heads shooting up?
Right. So, no, not really. But we did talk to, Karen and I talked about trying to figure out a way to reduce this, and I know Imai is a big fan of what I'm about to say. After the, because everything that Karen actually is proposing, everything's native. So all it needs to do is get established, and then it's gonna be able to hold itself. And so that's what we're talking about, is probably a 2-year period of getting this established, and then probably the need for irrigation is not gonna be needed at all for any of the plantings.
So, all right, so you're saying you need a 2-year MDC irrigation for shrubbery only, not for lawn?
For the trees, yeah.
For shrubbery and hardscape, or not hardscape, but that kind of herbaceous landscape, not for the lawn. And it would be tied to a 2-year, and how are we gonna police that? So at the end of that
And then
time,
disconnect it.
we come out and disconnect it, or we come out and watch you disconnect it?
Well, we were talking about disconnecting it for the zones in the area where the plantings and the shrubs are, but keeping it for the lawn, so I would,
No lawn.
no lawn.
Maybe I could read this letter that Imai just handed out to the planning board from a neighbor, Maggie Taylor. She says, "Dear members of the planning board, as I am unable to attend tonight's meeting, I would respectfully ask that this letter be read into the record to voice my concerns, which are as follows. The original sidewalk for 100 Ridgeway Road, Mr. Adelon asked Jay Lavoie from Gilson in a tone that expressed some alarm. It's a characterization. You're not planning to put a sprinkler in here, are you?" I don't remember actually saying that. Mr. Lavoie responded that if they were to put a sprinkler system in, it would run off a well on the property. At a subsequent meeting, asked again about a sprinkler system, there was some discussion about possibly using the underground holding ponds, I think she means the, yeah, to run the sprinkler system. Mr. Lavoie said it was a good idea and would look into it. There have been many concerns voiced about the drainage at 100 Ridgeway Road. The quality of water brought onto the property to run a 4 or 5 bedroom house, and where that water, as well as the runoff from roof and gutters of such a large house, would ultimately end up. If the amount of water being brought onto the property substantially increases, as I worry that it does, with an irrigation system running to water plantings and lawns, what does that do to the calculations of Gilson as to how much water there is to be and how that water will be dealt with? Is their plan still valid? I would assume the answer is yes, because you were planning for an irrigation system anyway. The terminal point for the drainage system is a dry well in the field across Orchard Avenue, which is not owned by the property owner, and which is not abut the property. This dry well also is used for the drainage water from 119 Orchard Avenue and 115 Orchard Avenue, for which it was originally designed. We have documented in past meetings the overflow of the dry well in the spring in big storms, as well as the pipe running into the dry well becoming clogged with dirt and flooding those two properties. Jay Lavoie stated that at one planning board meeting that he planned to ameliorate the dry well's condition by potentially enlarging it, or at least replacing the cover. The dry well is supposed to be inspected twice a year by the owner of 100 Ridgeway and cleaned as necessary. There has been no motion toward amelioration, nor have I seen the inspection of the dry well. How and when are these things going to be done? I thank you for your time and attention. Okay, so the dealing with the dry well is separate from the sprinkler system questions, it seems to be.
And they are conditions in the certificate of action. One of them is actually, it states that we have to fix the cover that goes on top of the dry well.
Right.
That is in the operation maintenance that one of Ridgeway has to inspect and maintain that dry well. And we have to inspect the drain line prior to CO for the house. So
the
all
house
that has to
doesn't
get
have a C of O yet?
No.
No.
Yeah, it's still under construction. So it's,
Okay.
well, this is, we want to get in front of you guys to talk about this, just because it's
Yeah.
an odd thing. We prepared to have, because we thought we were going to have a lot of water.
Yeah.
We had the irrigation well, we designed the house to be above the groundwater table, but we still would have enough to go into the cistern, but everything that, you know, the assumptions was, we're better than what we thought the assumptions were gonna be.
Yeah.
This letter made me think of, what about, it's probably too late for a gray water system, right?
Like, for like the laundry and,
Baths.
Shower and
Anything,
baths,
yeah.
and
You
seems
know,
everything but the
Yeah, how
toilet.
does,
Title V doesn't like that.
yeah, that's what I,
Yeah.
Because you want, what happens is that,
You
you want
put
to mix the black and the gray to get your biological oxygen demand down. If you just do black water, then it's really high.
Nice.
That'd still only be, even for a 5-bedroom house that's fully occupied, about
It's a separate plant.
300 or 400 gallons a day,
Right.
which
Yeah.
really pales to like what you throw on a lawn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you assume, you
Sad
assume,
to say.
yeah.
Yeah, really.
That's the real point of
So
that.
now this brings up really a philosophical question. So we, as the board and as the town, like to require that if you're gonna have an irrigating system, you don't bring exogenous water in from the middle of the state, okay? So, and we require that you pump the water from underneath you in the theoretical philosophy that it's just being returned, right there.
Right.
Although I have to admit, when you've got a 700-foot well, it is not being returned
Right.
back to the fossil water that you're pumping, where you hope to get the pump. But what happens when the well is dry, and no matter where on the properties, are we required to then say, well, sure, just get MDC water? I say no. I say that is not an option. But that's my own opinion. So,
Well, for one thing, what about a shallower well?
we can look at it, the thing we want to look at is, as Dave was saying, the demand of that, of what we need to do for irrigation, say we even exclude, for the shallow, if you exclude the lawns, what we need the demand for a minimum for the shrubs and the trees. So I can look into that, it's not a bad, I can look at it, and I didn't think of it before we came here, but I can take a look at it. Just, what happens is the shallow well is gonna have to go, I don't know if you guys recall, but this is basically this is a bowl, like a bowl area originally was. And so you had the low point, you had the 2 catch basins, you had the forge that was here. And so underneath, it's almost a bowl, not only just the grading that was on grade, but also below it with ledge. So that's kind of how the water was there, was that it gets to a point and then it breaks through the soil
right.
at a certain elevation. So we just gotta find an area, if we can find one, that we can get deep enough with a well that has enough volume before it breaks out, so it's actually useful.
Yeah, I mean, I'd see about like trying to feed that cistern if anything you can, like the roof, sub-drainage from the yard, and any sort of like kind of low dug well, and then just doing what you can to kind of minimize on the demand side.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at it. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, really, before we sign off on it and say, fine, go ahead, plug into the MDC, that would be,
I'm voting against
what,
it.
at least this, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
It's gives you a rooting interest to find another answer.
Yep.
Hugh, did you have any comments?
I don't know or understand any of this. My sense, however, is I had thought that the engineers and the experts had studied this to death. And as one of the neighbors concerned about drainage, particularly as we now see the height of the construction site, in a layman's sense, I hear you coming back and saying, maybe we weren't wrong, but we weren't quite right. And so we want to change this. And I continue to have the concern of, what if this just doesn't work? And I'm hearing you say that, well, what we previously planned turns out not to have worked. So we're asking for an adjustment. And just sensing from the flavor of conversation, it still sounds as if you guys are sort of on the back of an envelope. Well, we can do this, or we can try this, and not knowing a bit about engineering, I would have thought that the engineering study, and my son spent a good deal of money, as you recall, on critiquing the Gilson study, and sort of, as you said, Al, here we are again, well, it didn't quite work, we need an adjustment. And I'm left with the bottom line concern, which has nothing to do with the conversation tonight, is what if this just doesn't work? And how do we know that it will work? And why does this not lend itself to more definitive, precise analysis and conclusion?
Because,
No, go ahead.
so this is working 100%. So right now this is all hooked up. The thing we're talking about is no one can ever have an idea that if you dig 700 feet that it's going to be dry. No one can ever predict that. And for the groundwater for this, it's based on the volume of water that's flowing down through here, getting into the bowl area, eventually getting to a point to get to the footings, which then or it breaks this way. And so we designed the footings to be 18-inch off the groundwater table. That's what you're supposed to do, 24 inches. So if we did 24 inches, I would have told you, this is never going to work. I said if we might be able to get enough water, because we can get some kind of fluctuation in there, but the water's not rising high enough. So that's actually a good thing that that's happening. It
I
means
don't
there's less
recall
water.
having heard might not work before. Again, and excuse me because I don't have the engineering details. I just left the last lengthy communications with a sense that it had been figured out, this is going to work.
But in any of these studies, their assumptions have to be made based on the data. So after a year of construction, what we've confirmed is the assumptions and the conservative nature of the assumptions. So the issue is not, the issue is that there's not enough water on the site for the irrigation.
Yes.
Boy, that's an irony, isn't it?
And that's what we're saying. It's a weird thing.
One, yes.
We designed for something, and based on we put a safety factor to it. We added this design was entirely. This thing was meant to take all the flow, even from the actual from the sump pump together. Added that as a prequel. Added this at the end, with the idea that we were going to get more water on site, or had the opportunity to get more water on site. And based on our soil testing, we thought we were going to be fine. But we said, okay, let's add these safety factors, make everybody feel safe. What's happening now is the safety factors were over the top a little bit, and so now it's not coming into play because we're not getting enough water to the system.
How big's the lawn? Can you just roughly like?
It's about, I think I had sent you.
Yeah, you gave me the count.
Is it 19, 16, something like that?
I thought it was
Yeah,
16.
So it's about 16,000 square feet. So it runs along this edge, down and around here, and up and around. So it's like there's little sections that this is the biggest width of it, and then there's a small section that comes along here, along the driveway up to the top.
I will just observe you, when you talk about lawn in that place, you got a huge house jammed into a very small lot, and I realize there's nothing any of us can do, except as an abutter, we can regret that. But how do you feel about your assumptions now?
I think that's actually for a safety factor, for drainage wise, they worked out very well. I mean, for the actual neighborhood, for the requirements that we were worried about, if we got too deep in the groundwater, that we were going to be pumping too much, or we wouldn't have enough depth to groundwater for the recharge basins, that all worked out perfectly. I mean, so we actually have more, and we can get more depth to groundwater based on where the recharge basin is. So the assumptions we did with that little safety factor made this site a million times better for drainage.
This is all about watering the grass. It really is. And for some reason now, that's an essential, people consider that to be an essential, basic necessity.
In Weston.
In Weston, I guess. I mean, I've lived in my house for 47 years. I've never had a sprinkler.
Me neither, and neither has she.
But
I have a 4-acre lot.
But a lot of people consider it a necessity. The question now is how to satisfy that necessity in a way that doesn't require plugging into the Quabbin Reservoir. And so what they're going to do is take a look at an alternative solution and see if they can generate a sufficient flow from that solution to keep the grass green. And then they're going to come back and let us know.
May I just raise an unrelated issue, just because we've seen obviously a lot of construction next door? And you guys have run into rock, maybe ledge, but we hear a lot of hammering. You comfortable that you're gonna be able to plant the trees and do the shrubs along with that other side of the driveway? Because there's a lot of rock
buried tunnel?
ledge there.
No, his
No,
side.
on the side of the
His
driveway.
side is something.
You know, abutting 80 Ridgeway where I am.
Yep,
And we look at that, and we look at the amount of rock that's been pulled out of there, and what you've had to do, you know, with jackhammers and so forth, and then we wonder, where are the roots gonna go?
Right, and so the ledge encountered, we didn't really, we hit any? We didn't hit any in the house. They hit some on this at back end underneath the actual driveway section right here that they had to hammer out a little bit, but that was down about 4 feet. This whole section, they excavated out without any ledge at all. So as of right now, we haven't encountered any ledge except for that one little section. Even when we dug out this entire thing here, we didn't hit any then either.
Excuse me?
We didn't hit any when we excavated this entire recharge basin, we didn't hit any ledge. So with this full excavation that went down like 6 feet, this foundation,
So you
nothing.
fundamentally, again, think that the tree planting is.
And anything that we do hit should be deep enough, like it should be too deep for us to actually get into problems, especially for the shrubs and stuff. The trees, we can, if we do hit something or a rock, I'm like, you can move it to put them in. I have confidence in Karen to be able to put everything in through there.
Okay, so we're gonna continue this until when?
We should continue to the 7th, November
7th
7th.
of November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until when, excuse me?
November
7th of November, Hugh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, if you want, I can kind of help you with that calendar.
Okay.
I've got a program.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's complicated working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I assume so. Some kind of a band, something. Thanks.
Yeah.
You have it, okay, I just want to make sure you guys have it too.
Thank you. 75 Scotch Pine.
Yep.
Bye.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Well, how'd the sidewalk go?
That one was,
That was a piece
Yeah.
of cake.
10 Sudbury, yeah.
Piece of cake.
10 Sudbury. Yeah, one, yes, I remember it.
It's the one up at,
New house.
across from the
Intersection.
Champion Center.
Intersection of Miriam.
Yeah, what are they doing?
Yeah, tight design.
It's a house
Very
that's
tight
going
design, yeah, very.
this way
It doesn't have a lot of
relative
space.
to the street.
Right, it
Yeah.
had to be long.
Yeah, all right. All right, thanks.
So, I just kind of, trying to get it.
75
So the town.
75 Scotch.
Do we have it?
Yeah, I sent, passed it out just before we started.
Yeah, there's, yeah.
Did I grab it back from you?
I don't know, but I don't have it. Do you have an extra copy of 75?
Here we go. I had some,
I got
I
one.
grabbed one back from you.
Yeah, let's read these quick.
Yeah, that's really
Okay.
Thank you, I continue to be overwhelmed by your incredible patience.
Oh, thanks, Hugh. I'll trade.
Anytime, I know you need that.
Night.
Good night.
All right, so what, 7, I've got. Yeah, my ice pack's getting warm.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna get you.
We're in big trouble.
Yeah,
Move
big
in
trouble.
here.
She's gonna get cranky in a minute.
You know, I'm cranky.
Yeah, let's read quick.
Yeah, real quick, okay. Wow, this is from July 17th.
Yeah, we started this one over the summer. Just take Tony off of this.
Yeah.
put always abbreviated small s, small f? I mean,
Either way.
it's okay?
Yeah.
Just ask.
So, you know, we're all set up. Yeah, it's like 12 grand. Yeah. Before, not less than job. Yeah. So I think that I totally agree.
In that same sentence, I was just having trouble with the little modifier, quite large.
Okay.
Yeah. It is large.
Large.
Yeah.
History of that.
But,
Well, I have to tell you, for that, one of the reasons I decided originally built the house, he knows things, kind of owner, borrower, they found that easement. So the easement was completely over. And so anyway, I'm glad you're here to say, well, we went through this whole thing.
also on page 5, sort of broken into preserved natural features, you've got an additional 119 have been assessed as dead or dying. As such, despite the ostensibly high amount of trees, would you not say despite the ostensibly high number of trees?
Okay.
Number of trees to be removed.
Trees, okay.
To be removed, and there have been aggressive. Page 6, under preserved scenic views, you have, given the importance of this view, the planning board landscape consultant will need to, with the landscape,
Need to comma, yeah.
right, need to be present.
Yeah, that sentence needs to be
With the project landscaper.
adjusted quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Oh, just 2 commas, yeah, that,
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 commas would
that
do
would
it.
solve it.
And then do we care about split infinitives or no, or,
No.
no? Okay, we don't correct for split infinitives, that was just,
Hey, you're
that
used
was
to,
just
Steve,
high
what
school
happened?
rhetoric.
You're used to actually.
Exactly.
But, I mean, now you don't anymore, you don't care, you don't like.
Grammar police deal with that.
This is a quick story on how much things have changed. When I was at my high school, we had to do essay submittals like every 2 or 3 every month. When I was a junior, if my essay contained a grammatical error, one grammatical error, I failed the paper.
Really?
If in my senior year, if there was one rhetorical error, I failed the paper.
Wow.
That would never happen today.
No,
No, why?
none of the above. Wow, you must have gone to parochial school, did they smack you over the wrist?
No, it wasn't parochial.
Wow.
It wasn't a parochial school. But they were tough.
Yeah.
I think the way my English teacher graded at least my sophomore year is like if you missed a comma, you got 5 points off the paper. It wasn't quite as bad, it's not quite the good level of fail.
Wow, that's a lot,
But yeah,
that's a
he
lot.
took 5 points off for like a
Yeah,
comma.
Comma, that's so
Good.
Yeah.
Wow,
And yet still, look what it got me, it's still misspelled.
We're still splitting infinitives. page 7, Imai,
Yep.
under design harmony.
Mm-hmm.
When you say that the narrowest, that the highest face of the house has a narrow profile, does the 20 feet 8 inches indicate height or width?
Width, yeah.
Okay, 28.
8 inches wide.
On 8 on that same page,
Mm-hmm.
say the AC and generator we place on the north side of the proposed garage outside of the public view from a public way,
Okay.
or
Yeah, it is.
something like that.
Okay.
Going back to page 6 on F.
Okay, yep.
Where you say there will need to be acoustical insulation to meet the 40 dB at the west property line, is that that's not a condition, or?
It is a condition. It's,
Okay, so do you want to add that as F4?
no, it's the standard condition. I'm
It's
just
a
saying,
standard condition.
to meet that standard condition, they're gonna have to
Okay.
provide it acoustical.
Now, you're just talking about the generator, or you're talking about the AC units that need the?
Well, they have this wine chiller unit that runs at like 51 or 58. It runs near a generator level.
But then don't you need to say that?
It's a chiller unit, so that's why,
Yeah,
and
but
it's a
there
base,
were-
okay.
What needs to have the acoustical insulation?
The generator.
Normally, we just think of it being the generator.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think we need to state
Okay.
if it's something besides that.
When you're done writing that, the last, number 11 on page 7,
Mhm.
the proposed house conforms with the zoning standards where the building height is close to the 37-foot maximum and will need to be measured by a licensed surveyor to ensure compliance. Don't we usually have a call out that it needs to be before as the forms are laid, and then like as the.
We usually do that if it's close to a setback.
Uh-huh,
Height, we usually do at, we started saying at framing.
at framing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right here,
so that's at framing,
special condition 2.
right, it's just, I was just wondering at what point in the process, you're right, it's the
Should that be
foundation that we
DC then?
Yeah.
shoot early, but so, the height is
Shouldn't that
done.
be,
After framing,
After framing,
but prior to
you didn't see
CO.
it after framing. I didn't
where
read
does
that.
it say?
I didn't read the first two
And the
words.
condition.
Ah.
Yeah, but shouldn't that be during construction
I know.
rather than prior to occupancy? Because framing occurs
Yeah.
way into construction.
So yeah, actually, that should be kind of like in D, it's during construction, comma, prior to occupancy, I think.
So
'Cause
what
I do
happens
want-
if- What happens if you're busy framing the house and lo and behold, it's 37, isn't that a little late? I mean, you have to go back to
Well,
the
there's-
drawing board and read.
That's
whole
the
thing.
soonest you could possibly do it,
Right,
really.
otherwise you don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
huh, huh.
because I mean, they've planned for it, right? They've planned for it to be
Hmm.
36.7 or what, you know,
Mhm.
near that number. But yeah, I mean, until you have that roof framed,
Never mind.
that's the only point.
Theoretical.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the soonest we could do it. I mean, the condition used to be just written prior to occupancy.
Mhm.
Then they're taking the attic down if it's wrong.
Yeah, just a couple of meetings ago, we
We had
changed
that-
it to framing.
Yeah.
Problem on Cedar.
So shouldn't it just-
Remember, that whole roof had to come off.
Right, well, I'm just remembering the road, one of our Radcliffe Road, right, that, that's way up.
If it's during construction, do you need to say also prior to occupancy? Isn't that an extension that just?
Mm, true.
C?
True.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be both.
Okay. Oh, I think that's a return that will get deleted, so the list carried on. Okay. I think that's on the standards, yeah, that's,
I just have some. punctuation, so. Shall I make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
I move that we approve the certificate of action with modifications noted for 75 Scotch Pine Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Moving on to
3 Sunday Woods.
That's a memo, right?
No, 3
No.
Sunday Woods is a special permit because it goes to a
Oh, yeah,
flexible
yeah, yeah, yeah.
subdivision.
That's right,
So we have to pass on that one tonight.
okay.
That's a 4.
That's a 4.
That's a 4,
So
yeah.
we're at 8 Lawrence?
We're at 8 Lawrence.
Okay.
Lawrence is,
We might have time for the town planners report. We should bother to prepare.
don't get overzealous
We're right
there.
at the end.
I know, right? Don't be too excited.
I can see the tape at the end of that.
At the race.
Yeah.
So these are very close. We have to survey these.
How conditions.
We're not picking up all comments and stuff like that, are we?
I did, I just handed it to you.
Did you?
But I just handed it to you, Mike.
And what about, did you take the apostrophe out of Ed's in the first paragraph?
Ah,
No, I haven't gone anywhere.
you see it again.
Did you get the revised
Yes,
site plan?
yes, I did. Kim has reviewed it, said it's much better, and had no further comments on it.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah. That's good.
Traffic required clearing and regarding, probably regrading.
Regrading.
Picked up the run-on sentence in the last paragraph. Steve?
Yeah, you mean punctuation
Yeah.
before and after, however?
Like a semicolon or something?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
What are we talking about the height, or are we talking about the setbacks here.
In this one, they come fairly close to the setback as well.
Read that point to it, I don't know. See, I don't see anything about measuring the setback.
So that is that is usually covered in our standard conditions, so we have prior to occupancy.
Well, then you should mention it in the commentary, so they'll
E32, okay.
flag it.
Yeah, it's
Because
E.
otherwise it could be interpreted that that's the only thing they have to check.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
it supersedes the
Right.
standard condition.
Okay.
So then again, wouldn't this be during construction rather than PTO, at least for the building height? And where are the setbacks measured?
Setbacks, the standard way we do it is basically prior to occupancy, so anytime after, you know, they're complete with the house.
Why do we
When
wait
it's
so
been-
long? Why wouldn't it be after you pour the foundation?
We have done it when they're really tight, we have done ones where it's,
Isn't it that tight on this? I
and
mean, when people have been right up against it, you know, by 2 inches.
Well, this is by,
the road edge one is the one that's tight, you know, there's 61 and
they're a foot
they're a
off the
foot.
setback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
On an old one on Boston Post Road.
Yeah.
Was that a foot?
well, we've had ones where they have like,
It's like
been-
18 inches.
Yeah.
18 inches off from the survey. So that one then started to encroach in the setback. It
Okay.
should be an issue.
okay.
So then
So-
you're saying it should be during construction rather than prior to occupancy, like right after the footings or?
Well, if it's prior to occupancy, if
Can't do
there's an incursion,
They go
what do you
nuts.
do?
Yeah,
Right.
they go nuts.
So then this is no longer a standard.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, then we'll wrap it into the special condition of,
Right, maybe do it earlier.
For that
Yeah.
matter, for our standard conditions, why would we ever wait until the end? Why not always do it after we pour the
Because I can see
foundation?
if you have 4 or 5 feet, you know, that there's not, the problem has always been when you've got like 18 inches and less that they.
Okay, so we always do it for every house, no matter what.
And
Well, we always do a
I think you
certified
need it
site
as-
plan.
as a confirmation.
Okay.
that locates it.
Confirmation.
All right, so, but if it's close, yeah, I think it should be.
It's close, okay, yeah, it is close, so
Yeah,
I do
it's
think,
So you'll just add to
It's real easy
F2.
with those little excavators, you know?
okay.
And
You
by
get
the
whole
way,
foot.
right now they're 4 and 5 instead of 1 and 2.
Yeah, I know, that it continued from the other one, I just noticed that.
So, okay, shall we?
Yeah,
We set?
yeah.
Can I move that we approve the certificate of action?
Yeah.
Scenic Road, site plan approval at 8 Clarence Road with the amendments and the changes that have been suggested.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
No opposed? Motion to adjourn?
really?
Looks like it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't have the town, we have no minutes.
We already,
of the town
we have no
planner.
minutes, and we already covered the town
Yeah.
planner report at the
All right,
beginning.
here we
What's the
go.
story with the-
You just
The
got
other was away,
You just
she
got
got,
it.
I got him, so she got me some today, so.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.